In this video, we'll talk about the bead. Thank you for joining me in another video. Liron here, and in this video I want to talk about how to get an even wash, and we will learn how to do that using the bead. This is really important for watercolor artists. One of the most basic tasks is to be able to actually get a beautiful even wash and to make the painting as connected and as smooth, like really bring it together. So this is what we're going to focus on in this video. It's a really simple and introductory topic, but I think it's a wonderful exercise even if you are experienced. So let's jump to it. Okay, so let's begin with a really light wash, and what I have here is just my paper taped to a piece of wood, like a surface, and I have it at about maybe 20-degree angle. You do want to have some angle just for the water to go down when you apply the wash. So now I have a bit of sepia left from yesterday when I did a very similar exercise. So I'm just gonna wet it, and what we're gonna do is do this exercise for a few different values for the paint. So we'll begin with a really light wash, what you might call tea. So I'm just going to add a lot of water to it and make it really light. I'm gonna test it in a moment, but I'm just really making it the lightest possible. Sepia is a great pigment color to practice with this exercise because it has a very large variety of values. It can go really light, or you can use it to achieve the darker values. So if I just take this piece of paper here and sort of go like this, and I can kind of test just to see how light it is, and I think it's the consistency I want it to be. So I just start applying it from top to bottom. So I put on a line like that, and now you see we don't have that much of a bead. The bead is like the bottom part, so I'm gonna just go over it again and add some more water and pigment just from the mixture, not just water. I'm just using the same pigment here, and you can see the bead sort of building up. See this at the bottom? This is really your lifeline. As long as this one is still wet, this bottom area, you can use it to make the wash come down. So what you want to do is just go with the brush and add another stroke slightly below the bead. Okay, you can just try and do this your way and see what's the most comfortable for you. I used to just go over it like that, but then I saw some people recommend to sort of imagine that you're connecting it to another line below it. So I don't think it really matters. You just need to be able to find the way that works best for you. Okay, so you can see already it's pretty even, right? There's not too much differences, and the thing with it is that there are a few other things to take into consideration. So you don't want to press too hard with the brush. A soft stroke is the best for this. This is what I find from my personal experience. You kind of just want to go over it like that. You don't want to dab too much or sort of go like this. The least amount of strokes, the better. So if you can just get it in one stroke, that's great. Now you will find maybe at some point that you lose the bead. So for example here you can see I kind of lost it. So if I have excess water in the brush, I can just dab it and it will fall into it. And if not, I can just, again, what I'm doing all the time, put the brush back in my palette, bring more, and then dab it in like that. And you see the bead slowly builds up. Okay. Now I think what we'll do in this video is I'll sort of create one even wash like that, and then we will try to get an even wash but mixed of two pigments or a few pigments. We'll try to get a gradation. Okay, so this is really good because the thing with watercolor is, again, you have this sort of a time limit, and once the paint dries, for example, like this here, if you touch it, it's going to be an ugly transition. So if I go like that, you see it's still a bit wet because I'm using a very thin consistency, but if you look really carefully, you can see a line separating them. So because you're so limited with time, you want to have as much things going for you and helping you. And this is one of those things that really help you. It's your lifeline. You can, if you are doing something else, you have to like take care of something like clean a brush, or I don't know, apply something else, you can just make sure that you have the bead, and then you can let it stay for a few moments. As long as the bead is there, it's gonna stay alive. Now another trick, this one again I learned from Joseph Zbukvich, which is an amazing watercolor artist, is you take this atomizer thing and you just spritz it, but not directly, but from a distance, like this. And it will sort of give the paint more life, meaning if it started to dry, it will really help lengthen the time until it dries. So if you want to go back and add some details into the wash, you can do that, okay? So this is, I think, it for the very basic wash. Now, of course, you don't have to take your time. You can just go ahead and go like this and just start painting. But if you want to build it up, or you want to do a gradual change or things of that nature, you want to be able to sort of take your time and be relaxed and know that you have the bead here. Sometimes you may need to mix a different pigment, slightly different color, different value for another area, and you just want to have that lifeline. So this is it for the first wash that we're gonna do here. Let's stop here, and for the excess, you just clean the brush, wipe it on a towel, which is what I'm doing right now, and just soak out the excess paint. And this is it. Now the reason you want to do it is because if you have a lot of, like a large bead here, you will just have this weird contour line around it because there was a lot of pigment in this area. So anyway, let's move on to the next. So for this next wash, I'm going to clean my brush again, and I think I'll just do a sort of transition from the French ultramarine here. I'm going to mix maybe a little stronger mixture, but not too strong. Still keeping it in a very thin consistency. And then what I'm going to do, I'll start with that, so you can imagine that it's skies or something like this, and then go on and slowly transition into the sepia, okay? So you're going to see how I add a bit more sepia to the mixture every time I continue, okay? Now I'm just going to test it here for a moment. It seems light enough, but I want more. You want to make sure, if you're doing a large wash, you want to make sure just that the quantity is enough. So you take a lot of pigment, you add it, and then you add a lot of water, just to get a large quantity so that it can last for you for the entire wash. Okay, this is really important, because if you run out of it, then again, you're sort of losing time. And it's a war against the clock. Not really, but yeah, a bit. By the way, sorry about my voice. I think I'm a bit sneezed today. My nose is runny, and I don't know why. I slept really well, actually, so I hope it will get better soon. So anyway, starting at the top, and remember to go over it a few times just to start building up that bead here. Now for this type of wash that's very, very light, just remember it's gonna dry much faster, much lighter, sorry, than you would see it on paper. And so you need to just know that and take that into consideration. So anyway, I'm just building here this sort of a sky wash or something like that. And now a reminder, don't press too hard on the brush. You kind of just want to go as light as possible. And also holding it at the back, relatively at the back, is really helpful. If you go too much like this, you lose the freedom of line and spontaneity. And it's just a good practice to hold it at the very back, because it's, I think, the best way to paint. It's not necessarily the easiest, but it gives you a lot of freedom. Anyway, now I'm going to start introducing the sepia into the mixture. So I'm just grabbing some of the light sepia I had here, just adding it a bit. So I'm gonna do the thing I said just slightly below the bead and sort of connect it like that. And you can see how here it's a little different, right? You can tell the difference. Now I'm gonna grab a little more sepia. That's too much. I'm gonna bring back some of the blue. Like this. Turn it a little lighter. And as you can see, I didn't take care of the bead. I didn't leave enough of it, so I'm gonna do it now. And like this. And just continue with this slightly different, darker value. And remember, sepia is a little darker because it's actually composed of, depending on the company or the brand of paint, it consists of usually ivory black and maybe burnt sienna or burnt umber. So the black part of the consistency really makes it much darker, which is good because it's what allows you to get the darker values. So now I'm adding some more sepia to the mixture. So you can see there's a gray area right now in the middle, but this gray area is gonna stop soon, and it's just gonna turn into a more brownish area, okay? Now, of course, when this is still wet, you can go ahead and add some details. Like this totally looks like a sky and maybe a land that's very far away. You can, when it's almost dry but still a little wet, you can get a little more control and put in some buildings or suggest some of the details of the background. Okay, so now I'm gonna mix a little more sepia. I'm gonna turn it into a more obvious brown here. Trying to be careful not to make it too dark at the same time, just to keep it relatively light. Let that bead build. It's funny how this is a really basic exercise, basic technique, really one of the building blocks of painting with watercolor for the most part, and it still really can be ignored by many people, including me. I totally didn't devote enough time to really feel like I'm mastering this one, and so whenever I'm having a hard time with something, I just go back to the basics. Just an extra tip for you, because when you go back to the basics, you're just and do like an exercise, very simple basic exercise, you sort of lose many expectations in a good way. So you just enjoy the process. This is really hypnotizing. You just go and apply the wash. It's really fun, you know. So anyway, now I'm gonna just grab all the excess paint from here just to let it dry, you see, without too much of a weird line here. Now, of course, it depends on your painting, so this may reach the edge of the page, or you can take care of that edge in many different ways. But now, just for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just soaking up the really bit of the pigment that's left there. Anyway, for the last wash, I think I'll do a darker one. And that way you will see how the paint interacts with the paper when it's a bit stronger of a consistency, because it is different, okay? So for this one, I'm gonna just, to balance things out, I'm gonna use the French ultramarine. Just gonna mix, I wanna get rid of the sepia in the mixture, so I'm just gonna mix a lot of the paint. And you can see a lot of the time in the painting process is really devoted to just the mixing stage. It's you start the painting when you're actually mixing this thing, because you're really trying to understand what value you need, what level of darkness, what vibrancy, all those different details that you want to be able to get correctly. Because once you put it on the paper, it's there's no undo button. So, which is why I love traditional media in general. I love computers and technology, and I'm really into all the new apps and things of that nature. But for painting and art, I always stuck with traditional. Always love to draw, always love to sketch, to paint. just with the, you know, the traditional media. I don't know, I guess I'm that type of guy. So I'm just gonna add, now what you'll notice with stronger mixtures like this one is that it tends to move much less. So you actually need to feed it actively with lots of pigment. You can see a bead building up. If we go maybe a little darker than that, it just won't bead. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're not going too dark, because with the really dark washes it just won't. And also you may find that you need to make the angle a little stronger, which I think I will have to actually. So what I'm gonna do is just slowly add a bit more here, and then just change the angle a bit, and there we have it. So now it's much better. You see that the bead is forming much better. And maybe I'll make the mixture a little wet, a little more wet. I'll cheat a bit so you can see here. And really, as long as you have that, you can sort of, you know, your phone is ringing, you can go answer it for a moment, not be too scared. You have a lifeline. This is really important, you know. The watercolor is, I find it to be a really challenging medium. And you really want to be able to have all the help you need. So yeah, if you can just make sure that you take care of the basics and you understand how to work with the very basic aspects of the media, you're gonna be good. And also, as an advanced exercise, once you sort of get control over that, you can challenge yourself, which I can actually do right now. Just imagine you're leaving a few highlights. So let's say there's a rooftop here that I don't want to touch and another one there. And you can just practice on leaving those highlights out, you know, not touching them. And it can be a really good exercise, actually. By the way, this is a great chance to see the granulation here. I talk about it, and I will talk about it more in my new series, The Paint Show, that you may have seen or may have not seen. So I encourage you to check it out. I'm going to put a link probably here, somewhere in the right corner. And I talk about it too, like the different characteristics of paints. Now, this show is not meant to be 100% serious. It's more fun, I think, but it also covers some of the characteristics of the different pigments and by different brands. So you may want to check it out. And this is it. So you see, it's a really good way to just practice, you know, coloring, painting around highlights, doing negative painting. You can see also that there's a bit of color here pulling up above the roof. So I can just slightly sort of guide it, help it go away, go down. You see this, you can actually see the group of paint. It was above this because it had nowhere to go, and then I just moved it around, okay? You don't want to meddle too much with the wash once you applied it, unless you know what you're doing and you're coming back with the right consistency of paint. Just generally, if you want to get an even wash, you don't want to play around with it too much, but you can, you know, very lightly guide the paint, or you can use the atomizer to sort of lengthen the life of the paint that you're using. So we're really coming down to the end of this wash, and I like the results. They're really cool. And you can see here, we're not worried too much about what we're painting. It's just an exercise, which is a great way to get out of a rut if you're struggling with some advanced stuff. So now I'm just cleaning the brush. This one's over. Thank you for watching. Let's wrap up the video. Anyway, this is it, friends. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this is information that's valuable to you and you can use it to actually produce better work, better paintings. This is it. So if you enjoyed, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more awesome videos, and also follow me on Snapchat and Instagram if you want to see the processes behind my work and really get into my head. And also, if you feel like you really enjoy painting but kind of struggling with the drawing part, I'm going to put a link below to my beginner's drawing course, so be sure to check that out if this is something you feel like you need help with.
So this is it. I'll see you again in another video. Take care.